And I'd like to introduce proudly Jeremy from RMLS.
So as you saw in the intro for this, we're going to cover some updates to RMLS, including some updates to our rules and regulations that took effect January 6th of this year. That includes a couple of new forms and then some new features of RMLS Web, including, I have some teasers for you, some new features that are going to be available, planned to be released at the end of this month, at the end of May, some really cool features. But then some other just great stuff that's been made available, some new aspects. So let's jump right into the rules and regulations updates that have taken place over the as of January 6th. Now, number one issue of 2021 was availability for showing. You can see I've got the rule from our rules and regulation document just right up there on the screen. I copied it right over there. And that rule states that all active listings must be available for showings. They must be available. They cannot be restricted until a future date. So what that means is you can't enter into a listing on, let's say, a Wednesday and say no showings until Friday, or showings not available until Friday, or showings start on Friday. You can't put that in there. In fact, our data accuracy team has in their search program a flag for that, that if someone puts in the remarks when they publish a listing or when they edit a listing, if they say showings cannot be until this, or showings start this, it's going to pop up for them to specifically look at that and reach out to you and let you know that showings must be available. However, we do understand that there are, especially in the last couple of years, there have been some situations arising where there was a tenant or someone living in the home that made it unavailable. So we have a new form that was released as of January 6th, and that is the uncooperative tenant unavailable for showings form. This is what allows you to have a listing in active status in RMLS Web, but not have it available for showings. Your client has to sign this, and in the showing, in the private remarks, you simply need to put the note unavailable for showings. Tenant will not grant access to the property. This is how you can be in accordance with the rules when you have those situations of whoever's occupying the home, whether it's a tenant that's a renter or the owner of the home is unable to have people in the home. This is how you can do that. So you simply need to fill that out and submit that to dataaccuracy@rmls.com. The email's right at the bottom of the form for you. Oops, I accidentally clicked on the screen and it jumped ahead for me. So that again came effective as of January 6th. If you have any questions, it's a pretty straightforward form. You can find that in the toolkit under all documents. You simply just search out uncooperative tenant and that will bring it right up for you when you have those situations. We also have a new rules and regulations violation report. In this report, you now choose from the checkbox of the suspected violation. You can provide an evidence statement. So for example, if the violation that you're reporting, again, this is the formal violation report, is not in that checkbox, you can detail it in the evidence statement. And new is the ability to request anonymity. Now, historically, the formal violations, the accused had the right to face their accuser. However, we want to make sure that agents are able to report violations, whether they're informal or formal, without fear of reprisal. The real estate industry is a self-policing industry. And so you see something, say something, and we want to give you that ability to do so, again, without fear of reprisal. So you need to check the box, but you can request anonymity. And in that case, if it does go through to a hearing, one of our rules and regulations people would basically act on your behalf. And so that's the new rules and regulations formal violation report. Again, that was made available as of January 6th. It can be found in the all documents section. Other changes to the rules and regulations is the minimum fine for all stations was raised to $100. It used to be $25. And this provides a really great thing. And that means that any violation that is going to get a fine has to be reviewed by our rules and regulation committee. It used to be any fines that were less than $100 were just levied by our data accuracy department. Now, because all fines, the minimum is $100, they're all reviewed by the Rules and Regulations Committee. So these are the volunteer realtors who sit on this committee and determine what the best course of action is when these violations are reported to us. Now, another thing was our maximum fine for certain sanctions was raised to $15,000. And I'll talk about which sanctions that was raised for in just a second. It used to be our maximum fine was, I think, $2,500. It's now for two, up to $15,000. But again, that's going to be determined by the Rules and Regulations Committee on the severity of the situation. Now, another aspect of this is they have changed the language of our rules and regulations that it may not be a fine, even though there is a sanction associated with the violation. The committee, the Rules and Regulations Committee, may determine that education is what's necessary rather than a fine. So they may require the person that this violation is being reported of to take a class with a trainer such as myself so that they can stop making these violations. Because again, we really focus on education and training rather than fines and punishment to make sure that everyone's playing by the rules. And of course, respondents always have the right to a hearing to appeal any sanctions. That's not a new thing, but it's just a nice reminder. Now, those violations with the up to and including fines, those top two that were raised to up to $15,000, those are misuse of lockbox access device and unauthorized private ID disclosure. Misuse of lockbox access device is the biggest one we see. It is a very common violation. And so just a reminder, only the owner of the lockbox may grant access codes to non-subscribers. If you are showing a property, you must be the one opening that lockbox as the buyer's agent, and you must be opening that lockbox in accordance with the showing instructions. If, as a buyer's agent, you are using your Bluetooth device to open that lockbox outside of the showing instructions or without approval to open that lockbox, you are in violation and you can be reported and you could be fined up to, now I'm not saying you will automatically be fined up to $15,000. It is up to $15,000 as decided, as determined by the Rules and Regulations Committee. Another part of this is a reminder that when a property is in pending status, because again, this was a big violation that we saw over the last year. When a property is in pending status, you do not have automatic authorization as the buyer's agent to enter that property, to open that lockbox. Properties that are in pending status may be shown with approval only. You don't have automatic access because you have an accepted offer to go into that property at any time. You still need to get permission from the buyer's agent to enter that property. The other sanctions that have an up to and including fines are the marketing of a listing prior to RMLS publication, showing a property in coming soon, no showing status, marketing of a coming soon, no showing listing, and I should specify that's public marketing of a coming soon, no showing listing, and solicitation of listing under contract. Those are violations that can be up to $2,500, depending on the determination of the Rules and Regulations Committee. And those can also include suspension or expulsion from RMLS. So those are kind of the big violations that we see that we want to be sure that you're aware of. None of these are new. However, those fines were up to got increased in some cases quite drastically. Just a quick review of the top issues that we saw in 2021. Just as this is going to be a very quick review of this section. That was missing tax ID number, missing school, missing owner name, personal promotion, property condition, and incorrect or missing info. Missing tax ID number, that's commonly seen with new construction. You can publish a listing without a tax ID number. However, you're going to get an email from data accuracy saying, as soon as you have that tax ID, please get that in there, because we want to make sure that the records for that sale, for that transaction, follow that tax ID. We want to make sure that the historical data that we have remains correct. Missing school is another common one that we see because at RMLS we have the elementary, middle, and high school as required fields. You do have the option of other. However, if you choose other, you're going to get an automatic email from data accuracy asking you why you chose other, because we don't want to see other in there. We want to actually see the school that services this area in there. That's why we made it required fields. However, if you are entering in a listing and you're certain that the school that services your area is not in that list and you're going to choose other, the first thing that we suggest is double checking the MLS area number, and making sure you're in the correct area number so that the correct list of schools shows up. If you're in that area number, if you've verified that this is not a private school that your homeowner has indicated, then respond to that email and let us know, because schools do change names. They do get new schools added, and we'll make that change and update that information for you. Missing owner name is another one that we see quite a bit. And you can submit a listing without the owner name if they want that confidentiality. However, you do need to submit the owner name omission form to RMLS within 24 hours. Having it signed and on file is not enough. You can't just say on file in office. That's not enough. We need it submitted to RMLS within 24 hours of publishing that listing. This is probably the number one and most ongoing historically violation we see, and that's personal promotion. Any videos, public tours, video tours, 3D dollhouse tours, HTML links may not be branded. They may not include branding or personal advertising in the body of the tour. When I say HTML links, what that means is if your video tour is hosted on your YouTube channel, it can't be John L. Scott Realtors virtual tour YouTube channel. It needs to be an unbranded YouTube channel. So that link needs to be unbranded. Now, if you do have a branded video that you just love, that you've created, that is amazing, you can put that link in the private remarks, because a big responsibility at RMLS is to protect that agency agreement, that agency relationship between a buyer's agent and their client, and a listing agent and their client. So you can put branded marketing in the private remarks and give that buyer's agent the choice as to whether they want to share that with their client. Missing or incorrect information. Again, this is a big catch-all field, but as agents, do your due diligence. RMLS is not going to make sure that you're entering in the correct information. That's your job, doing your due diligence and entering in that correct information. We get these reported a lot of misrepresented listings. So make sure that the information you're putting in is correct and accurate. And finally, property condition. New is new is new, and you see it underlined right there. It has never been occupied. It's not like new, it's not practically new, it's not good as new, it's not almost new. It is brand new. In fact, maybe it's gone through the process of being proposed under construction, and now you've got the certificate of occupancy, and it is now new. But we get that a lot. Even though it says new construction, it is very literal in that it means new construction, brand new, not lived in ever before at all. So that was the quick rules and regulation update. And let's move on to the fun stuff, the new stuff at RMLS Web that we have available to you. And I'm going to start with those teasers that I talked about. These are the things that are going to come out at the end of this month that I think you're all going to really enjoy. And I've got those up here on my demonstration site. So again, you don't have these up yet, but you will by near the end of this month. And that is, let me just get into a really quick search over here. Let's go into one that I've got already. No, I don't have one created, sorry. Let's just get into a search, because there's going to be a new tool that's available in your search results. Let's just go ahead and get my search run. And now when you're in your search results and you click on this agent and go into the agent full report, you're going to see a change in the upper right-hand corner here below the select report button. And that's down here. Now, this used to be just a big button that said add to watch list. And this is where you could add this to a watch list. Well, it's going to change to these three buttons here where you can print it. You can still add it to a watch list by clicking the little eyeball here. However, we've got a new feature, and this is the favorite button. You can add an individual property to your favorites list. And where this becomes really useful is you're doing a search for one client and you come across a property that you're like, oh gosh, this would be perfect for this other client. So what you can do with this is when you click on add to favorite, it's going to let you add a note to it. And we're going to say great for, oops, I can't type, for MG. And I can now apply it to this client. Now, this isn't automatically sending it to the client. I still want to send this to the client, but what this now does is I have two ways that I can access this property that I just favorited. One is I can go up to my prospecting tab and I can go to my favorites, and it's going to show me all the properties that I favorited. And what's cool is you have an unlimited, they didn't put a cap on this, there's an unlimited number of properties that you can favorite, and they'll always show up in your favorites list here. So this is one way you can access what you have favorited. And because I assigned this to Benji, it's going to show that I've assigned this to Benji. So it lets me basically track my progress. Now, once this is favorited, we do also recommend adding it to your watch list, because when you favorite it, it's just going to add it to your favorites list. It's not going to send you notifications of anything happening with it. So if you want to receive notifications of anything changing on this property that you favorited, you'll also want to add it to your watch list. Well, then that will then let you receive notifications, depending on how you set up your watch list, of any changes to this listing. Now, the other thing that's beneficial about using the favorite button is you can also access that by going up to your toolkit and going to your contact manager. The contact manager is also getting an upgrade at the end of this month. And it's going to look like this. Instead of a list, and it's kind of our old contact manager, if you've ever looked at it, it's very, very rudimentary. It's getting a lot more detailed, and it's turning into these cards. And so I can see I've only got one contact set up here because this is just our demonstration site. But you can see the contact that's set up, and you can see the properties that you favorited and you've assigned to that contact. So lots of uses for this, lots of use case scenarios for this of using this favorite feature. Now, currently, it's only letting you favorite it. Your client isn't able to click favorite and feed it back to you. That's kind of a forward-facing project, but that's a very cool aspect of something that's being added to Armless at the end of this month. Another thing that's being added at the end of this month is, let me get back to my search results. And that is something that's been being asked for a long time. This has been a big ask. Our board of directors finally approved it, and our development team was able to add this programming in. When you are in a search result and you go to select report and go to your client facing report that you want to send out, and you choose to email it through RMLS Web, when you click on the email button, you now have the option, or sorry, at the end of this month, you will have the option to generate a report link. So if you don't want to send a PDF to your client, you want to send a link. Again, this has been a big ask of agents that want to send a link. This is how you can do that. You generate a report link, and you can either send it through RMLS Web, or you could copy this link. And if you use Outlook and you have a template that you send out, you can copy or paste this in as a hyperlink. So you can send an email from your own personal email saying, so-and-so client, click here and insert that hyperlink on those words here to access this list of properties. And you can send multiple properties. Now, in this link, I was sending those 2 properties. I've done it as a practice where you could send, I think it was like 70 that were going out in that link. And that link will remain active for 30 days. It does expire because it does generate data for us. But yeah, exactly, Doug. It's been a big ask for a long time. So at the end of this month, you're going to have access to that. Really, really cool. So that is the new stuff that's coming at the end of the month. And it's the perfect segue for another thing that is available right now, because there is another way that you can send a link to a client. And give me just 1 second. I need to switch screens here. There we go. Here's my phone. So here we have the RMLS Web app. It's available on the App Store for Android or iPhone. This is not available to the public. This is just a subscriber app. So if your clients try to download the RMLS Web app, it's going to ask them to log in. They're not going to be able to log in. This is a realtor only. This is a subscriber only app. When you go in, currently, you can use this to search. So you can search nearby, you can do a property search, you can find a realtor. So it's pretty basic. It's a very, very easy to use app. When I tap in the map, you can see it just brings me to my geographic location, and it starts populating the active listings. You can use the filter up here at the top to start applying filters to this. All kinds of filters that you have available. It's all the commonly used filter features that are in the advanced search. You can use the little draw icon down here on the bottom, and you can draw on the map to search a specific area. You just draw on the map with your finger, click submit, and it changes the search result, so it's only searching that area. Now, Once we get into this, let's go down and let's click on one of these listings, tap on the profile. This is how, using the app, using the RMLS Web app, you can now use this to text this to your client. So I can click down here on the share icon, and it's going to bring up all the different messaging services that I have on my phone. So I could send this via Messenger. I could send it via Teams. I could send it via Ring Central. I could send it via Outlook. However I want to send it, this will send the client full report out. Anytime you click that little share icon, that's how you can share the client full report for this single property with the client. This is also how, as you can see, you can generate a link for this specific property. And of course, you can always go back and use the regular share report and send out a client full report the old-fashioned way. You can see going to select report. But I find this is the most common benefit, or the great thing about this app, is being able to click on here and use this share icon to, like I said, text a listing, text a client full report out to a client. Coming soon to the app, and I believe this is scheduled for a July release, will be the ability to edit and upload photos to listings using the app. Currently, the app is only available to search for properties. You notice when I go back to the home page there, it's just searching for properties. But coming soon this year, again, I believe it's scheduled for July release, is the ability to edit an active listing and upload photos to an active listing using the app. Again, it's been a big ask for a while, and our development team was finally able to get into that and get that coding done. So that's really exciting, and keep an eye out on the newsletter page for that to be released, like I said, later this year. All right, let's go ahead and go out of the app, and let's get to RMLS Web, some of the new features that have been made available that you already have access to. All right, bye-bye, Gunther. Let's go back to our regular desktop page. And here we are on RMLS Web Home. Now, one of the things I want to point out, this is not necessarily a new feature, but we made it more easily accessible, and that is contact us up at the very, very top here, because we always want to hear from our subscribers. We are a realtor-owned, we are a board-owned MLS. What we do is determined by our subscribers. So up here under contact us, when I click on that, it brings up the help desk information. So if you need to call the help desk, that's an easy way of doing it. But what I really want to point out is the questions, comments, and feedback right above that. Because like I said, we want to hear from you. And there are two specific things that I want to point out on this. And that is, number one, enhancement. We have an enhancement committee, and we meet once a month, and we literally read through every request that we get from our subscribers. I wish RMLS did this. Does RMLS do this? Is there any way that I can do this? How can I do this? We read through every single one and determine how we can respond to them in the best manner, whether it's putting it through to our rules and regulation committee, to our forms committee, to our technology committee, or if it's something that we can reach out and provide you training on. If it's something that we already do, we'll reach out to you and let you know how you do that. I do that every single month. There's at least 6 people that I contact and say, you know what, you can do that, and here's how you do it. This is also how you can report an informal violation by clicking up here to rules and to data accuracy. Again, we want to hear from you. You can report an informal violation either on an agent full report by clicking that report issue button, or you can do that here under contact us, questions, comments, and data accuracy. We want to hear from you. If you see something, say something. I just had the example I like to give with this. I just had this phone call on the help desk where an agent had a prospecting profile set up for specifically FHA, VA financing for a client, and properties kept coming up that were being listed as is, seller to make no repairs, needs a new roof, has dry rot, needs a new deck, but will take FHA or VA financing. No, you won't. And she was really, really upset. She's like, how can I stop this? And I said, report it. Report those violations to us, because a listing that's being entered. Now, while it's not the VA and FHA finance is not necessarily a violation, the what's the word that I'm looking for? The misrepresentation is a violation. So again, remember that earlier violation report, doing your due diligence, inaccurate or missing information, indicating financing that you know a property isn't going to qualify. is misrepresentation. So again, if you see something, say something, and we just want to make it easy for you to do so. Let's go ahead and get back to our home page. And spinning wheels. All right, while that's coming up, I'm just going to switch to my back office tab. Oops. New in the back office tab, we have two things for you here. We have submit excluded listing. So if you have an office exclusive listing and your client fills out and signs the authorization to exclude from MLS and public marketing addendum, this is where you need to go to submit that to RMLS. Having your client sign that and keeping it in your office is not enough. You need to submit it to RMLS. And you do that right here. You simply click on submit excluded listing and upload that PDF to us, and we keep it on file, and we're everybody's happy. But right below that is another new feature, and that is the new construction. This is the new construction information record. And this is a wonderful tool, especially for agents who work with builders. So I'm going to click on that so you can see what this looks like if you haven't explored this. These new construction information records, this is not replacing a listing. This is augmenting a listing. And I'm just going to click on one that I've already got started so you can see what kind of information you as the listing agent can put in here. Now, these don't have to be associated with a listing. Generally, they are. And I'll show you where you do that. Now, it's just going to reference the listing. It's not impacting the listing. But as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs to fill out with this. And it's great information, community name, community URL. Now, this can be branded because these only live on RMLS. These don't feed out to anything. There is no data pull for the new construction information record. These only live on RMLS Web, and I'll show you where they show up in case you've missed them in the past. Again, you know, add photos, add documents. You need to add just at least a street name. So if this is a big development and all the streets haven't been named yet, they haven't been platted out, you can just put the street that the property or the development abuts. A price range. Of course, we want a map location. Now, optional are the schools. And here's where you can add or where you can link a listing. This is just providing a link so that when an agent comes into a new construction information record, they can go directly from that to any active listings. Again, it's not going to impact the other. It's just referencing that listing. And then you get to enter in the builder and development information, including the builder's name, sales, office, days, and hours, any incentives being offered, how many homes are going to be built, how many are currently under construction, how many are completed and are ready to be purchased and moved into, all the different floor plans available. Again, just basic information about these. This is not a full listing. That's why you go ahead and link that listing so you can actually see the full listing. But even better, and I think this is my favorite part of the new construction information record, is on this financial tab, the buyer agent commission. When you enter in a new construction information record, you are posting to the cooperative of RMLS that this builder is offering a buyer agent commission. He's offering to cooperate with a buyer's agent. You are demonstrating that for the entire development by entering that in here. And of course, it's required. And of course, we've got the broker agent information and the remarks. And again, these are going to be, it says public remarks, but these NCIs only live on RMLS Web. So where do they live? What is the benefit of these? Well, let's go into a search really quickly here so we can see where they live. And let's just go over here to, let's say this garden home search and see what comes up. No, let's not use that one because nothing came up. Let's go to my Vancouver one. I know one came up in there. Notice first off, I've got show new construction checked. You have the option of turning this off, but you want to have those on because let's load you up. All right, we're going to move on and go to a different search to make that show up here. Let's just go over to my advanced search and let's get some stuff in there. Let's zoom out. Let's clear my map and let's just draw myself a little circle. let's go over somewhere where I know there's some new construction. And you. And there we go. Let's move into our search. Even though it's 378 results, that's quite a few. So the new construction information record, regardless of the criteria that you put into a search, regardless of the price point, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, all that kind of stuff, regardless of what you put in as criteria, the new construction information record will show up in a separate section at the very, very bottom of your search results. You can see down here at the very bottom, it shows up as new construction. And so this is being provided to you as knowledge. So when you are doing a search, regardless of all the criteria that you've put in, if there is a new construction information record that is in that area, that MLS area number or zip code, it will show up here at the bottom of your search results. And the benefit of that is that gives you the knowledge of new construction that's going into the area. Of course, this is dependent on the listing agent entering this in, but this provides you two things. If your clients are looking and there's not a lot of results, you may see that there is a new development going in. It's all under construction, but you can look and you can see the price range of the homes going in and say, you know what? There's some stuff that's coming in. Let's go ahead and get into that sales office and get a look at the model home. Or conversely, you have a client that's looking at a neighborhood, you run the search and you see that there's a new construction information record and they're going to be building 300 homes. And you may want to tell your client, you know what, I'm your neighborhood expert, I'm the area expert, and I see that this area that you love is about to get a lot more crowded. There's the development of 300 going in here. Maybe we want to look elsewhere. So there's kind of two sides to that coin of the new construction information record benefit. Now, again, this is a new feature, so it's just starting to gain traction, and I'm seeing a lot of traction with it. A lot of agents that work with new construction are taking advantage of this because it is another way for them to get their developments out there to the public and knowledge about those homes, especially in low inventory markets such as this. All right, let's move along to other new features that are available in RMLS Web, and going right here to the middle to the quick search bar. This quick search bar is nothing new. This has been here for a while. However, it has some new functionality to it, and that has to do with these tabs. You know, so we've got our listing tab. That's what this has always been used for, being able to search by MLS number or an address. You can search by multiple MLS numbers by using a comma. There's a new feature to that, but I'm going to save that till the end of it because it's my favorite one. You can also now use this to search the MLS roster. So by clicking on the roster tab, you can search for other subscribers based on their name, their phone number, or their email. So if you have an agent's email, you can plug that in here and it will bring up their information, what office they're with, who their principal broker is, what their buyer agent ID is if you need that to enter it into a transaction. Same thing, phone number. If you just have their phone number, you can look them up here. Now, you've always been able to do that up here under the toolkit. We just made it easier for you by putting it right here on the home page on this quick search bar. Same thing with the tax tab. You've always been able to go up here to search and go to search the tax record, but we made it easier by putting it right here on the quick search bar, and you can search by address. I'm going to expand this so you can see the different ways you can search. You can search by address by simply entering that address in. I do recommend when searching the tax address to leave the suffix off. So I would recommend searching 4005 Main to find the tax ID for this, because entering that street, every county records their addresses a little bit different. And so sometimes it makes it hard to find. So leaving that street type off will yield better results. But you can see right above that, by including the equal symbol, you can search the owner name field. So including that equal symbol is telling our system to search the owner name field for this information. And it will search whatever you put in. So if I just put in John, it will look for the tax ID for any owner name field that has either the name John or John in part of the name. So if it's Johnson, if it's Johnington or Johnson Lincoln, it will search and bring that up. Searching for the tax ID number, you need to include the hashtag, the number symbol, the pound symbol, whatever you call that symbol, whatever your generation calls it. Include that symbol, and that's telling the system to search the tax ID field for that specific tax ID. So again, things you've been able to do before, we just made it easier to access right here on the quick search bar. But now I'll go to my listing tab because I want to show you my favorite part of this. And that is the ability to search an address range. And you can see that's the very last one down here. By including 2 periods, I'm going to demonstrate this because I've got one that I've already got set up. By including 2 periods, I am searching between the 1900 and the 2200 block of Northeast 13th in Portland, Oregon. And this is going to return all MLS data for that street range, for those 4 blocks. And because I've got show summary checked up here, again, that's nothing new, but I just like to point out that I've got it checked because it's going to give me a summary of each of the statuses. So again, this is returning all the MLS information for this range. So it's going to bring up any active listings that are in those couple block range, along with the average median days on market, average median list price. I've got 1 pending listing that's showing up. I can look at all the solds that can't have ever been entered into that address range. So really nice, very, very detailed snapshot of market activity on this couple blocks, along with that median average days on market. And of course, we can always click on those and look at that information. So really cool way of being able to get some information about just that couple little blocks. Really, really cool feature. Or your client tells you, yeah, I was on Elm Street the other day and I saw this house for sale. Do you know anything about it? Here's an easy way of finding it. You know the range. You can just look up that range. Again, right there on the quick search bar on the home page. And let's get back to our home page. All right, so that's the new stuff that's on the quick search bar. So let's move along over to our advanced search tool, because I want to show you some new search features that have been made available that have lots of different uses. Let's get in here. And I'm going to go ahead and clear my search so we can start fresh. One of the options that you have that's been added in the last year is over here in our frequently used criteria, we have price change. So price change is something that we added as a response to requests from our subscribers. This is the perfect example of agents that had searches set up for clients. And as agents do, a listing agent wanted to refresh their property. They want to get it out to more people. So they dropped the price by $100, by $1,000. And agents were like, I don't want to see price changes of these ridiculously tiny amounts. I only want to see substantial price changes. So you can apply this to your category or apply this to your criteria, and determine that you only want to see properties that have had a price change by whatever amount you're going to put in, whatever substantial amount you want to see, whether it's been an increase or a decrease. You can add this to your criteria. And especially helpful is when you have a prospecting profile set up, you can include this in here so that if a listing agent drops the price by a small amount, it won't show up as a new listing. It's something you've already seen. That was our price change. Let's go ahead and get into our map because our map is really what's very exciting. Now, if you are an agent who continues to want to use the MLS area number to do your searches, I'm going to plead and beg and say, don't use the MLS area, use the map range. You're going to find so much more use out of the map range than you will by searching MLS area numbers. MLS area numbers have nothing to do with the real world. They were created by MLSs for not so great reasons. So use the map range. There's so much more benefit to using it, such as, let's go ahead and let's get into Hood River. So we're using your area. I'm over here in Portland. So let's get into Hood River, Oregon. Now, to start, this locate field is awesome. If you're not familiar with this locate field, it's an easy way of navigating the map. You can use it to enter in Hood River just to bring the map to your location. I love that it just takes me to the river itself. Zoom out a little bit, and here we are at Hood River. This can also be really, really useful for another case, and that is using it on a specific address. So let's just go ahead and use one that I have here. Click go, it's going to drop the pin. What does this make it useful for? Up over here, and this is what's new, in our layers button. Now this layers button is not new, but there's some new layers in here, including the MLS area number layer. And when I click that on, you'll see my map turns all kinds of colors. And now I can say that my property is square in 148, area 148. I just had a listing agent call the help desk today who was entering a new listing, and he said, how do I determine exactly what area number my property is in? I need to get this in the listing load, and I'm not entirely sure. His property happened to be right over here. It was right on the edge. But by using this layer and applying that, it makes it really, really easy to determine exactly what area number your property shows up in. Another new layer that's available here, neighborhoods layer. Now, this is obviously a little bit more interesting in the Portland area, but it's a very useful layer to use, especially for research purposes. Well, let's go ahead and get back to Hood River. And I'm going to do that just going over here again using the search, the locate field. And let's zoom out a little bit. All right, so we're in Hood River. Now, if you've been using the map feature before, you know that there are different draw tools. You can draw a simple rectangle. You can draw a simple circle. You can draw a polygon. If you're not familiar with polygon, it's my favorite way of drawing because it lets you be super specific. You simply click every time you want your drawing to change direction. One click for every change. You can put up to 50 different clicks in here. You click inside the square to finish off your shape. Let's go ahead and delete that. Now, Freehand, this is a new feature. Freehand was developed for touchscreens specifically, as well as laptops that are using a touchpad. So if you're using a laptop with a touchpad, not a mouse like I am, Freehand is really useful because you can simply click on that and you use your touchpad. I'm going to switch to that. You hold down the click and you simply draw. You draw around. You don't have to click every time you want it to change shape. You just draw around, release it, and it closes the shape. Also makes it easy when you're using, like I said, a touch screen, because you can use draw and use freehand and then just draw on your screen the area you want. But over here to the far right of our draw tool is a couple of new features. Number one being boundary. This is a very fun feature because this brings up 6 different layers that we can turn on and search by. So for example, if I turn on the, let's say, zip code layer, let's zoom out a little bit. You can see it's applying the zip codes to the map, but they have added functionality to them. If I click inside 97031, it's now searching that area for me. And what's even better about this is, let's zoom out a little bit more. So let's click inside you to deselect it. Let's go ahead and just click our count button. Now, count is not new, but it's one of the reasons that the map is such a wonderful tool to use when searching, because count gives you a preview. And I love using count because what it does, as it's slowly bringing up my results, I maybe have too many, or who knows. Anything, there we go. We can see all these dots all over the map. And this is why I think the map is such a useful tool. I've entered in criteria. My criteria is very vague. I've just got residential active. But if I had other criteria, it would show up over here. Now, anything that's in blue that has these blue dots, that means it matches my criteria over here and it falls inside my search boundary. Anything that's in this kind of grayish color, that means it still matches my criteria over here, but it falls outside of my search boundary area, which means it's not going to show up in my list when I run my search. Why I feel this is so beneficial is, especially in low inventory market, it lets you see that you've selected a search boundary that your client says, I want to be in this zip code. You can do a print screen of this and share this with your client. Say, I know you want to be in this zip code, but look how many properties you're missing. Look how many other options we have that we could look at. That's just an example of how you can use the count to get a preview of these properties. So again, count is your friend. I'm a big, 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 big fan of count. Again, with that draw, with using that boundary search, you simply click inside the area to deselect it. Let's get our zip code. Whether you want to select it or deselect it, you just click inside the area. Hello, yes, Amanda? Was that for us or were you just excited? And you can see you've got different areas you can activate. You've got the MLS area number, the zip code layer, the middle school, neighborhood, elementary, high school. The cool thing about using these elementary, high school, and middle school layers to do your search is you're not relying on what the listing agent has entered in. You're relying on the physical location of the property to do your search. So you can see when I click on here, let's do our count. Oops. Let's click on Hood River High School.
Choose middle school because there's two different middle schools.
Oh, sure. Let's go boundary. Let's go middle school. And we can click on Corbett. So we can specify the school that we're looking at. And when I run the count, again, this is relying on the map. It's not relying on what the listing agent entered. So if they brought up their pull down menu and they chose other, or maybe they choose the wrong school for whatever reason, or whatever the case may be, we're relying on the actual map to search this school's boundaries. So really, really cool feature of being able to get your clients the stuff that they want and not relying on a listing agent who may have made an error. That happens more than we think.
So Jeremy, can I mention something really quick?
Yeah.
So oftentimes when you go to actually set up a listing, you'll end up in all of a sudden the schools are not popping up for you. So oftentimes you're in the wrong area. So when you go to research your property to list it, you can use this in pretty much a lot of the other searches too. I use like tax ID or address ID. So you could go ahead and open up that particular property and again, find out exactly what area it's supposed to be in. And then the skulls will come out properly for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Because we get that daily on chat. Sorry.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
it's super, super frequent.
I have one question too.
Sure.
This comes up in our area, and I think a change just was made. Like Odell in area 366 is in 97031 because of the address. They don't have their street address. So, but it doesn't, 97031 doesn't have Odell as a choice for a town. So that's, we just did this with Hewsome. It doesn't come up when you pick area, whatever. Like there's a couple little towns that don't come up as choices. So people think the home is in Hood River and they don't because it has a Hood River address, but it really is in Odell, which is 366. So I can expand on that later in a comment, but I'm just wondering, it seems to me that's a question we get a lot.
Yeah, if we need to update that list, let Janet know, and we can relay that to data accuracy, to software development, to update that information.
So, Judy, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like Odell actually at one point had its own zip code.
It does have its own zip code if you have a post office box.
Yeah. So
But
what I'm saying is, to help development get that squared away, I think it might help them.
Yeah. But I know like Julie Gilbert just changed something where a town wasn't coming up in an area, a 3-digit area. The town wasn't coming up as a choice. I think it was Snowden.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just, I can send something in on that.
Yeah. Let us know, and that goes for everything. Yeah, anytime there's something, please let us know. If we don't know, we can't do anything about it.
And then there was also a suggestion in this area about actually doing it by fire district, which is it aligns with the schools, but it also breaks down the barriers a little bit better for here.
Gotcha.
Because we have all of our own little burgs that any of us that have been around for a while recognize, that new agents and people from outside don't recognize. It's at the corner of the rock and the big tree. Yeah, or Jones Boys Dairy. How about that one?
So I was just gonna take a look at my map here. So we got my zip code, or we got my city layer on, and there's zip codes. We can see Odell is in 031.
Hmm. But it didn't used to be.
Ah, gotcha. And it is in 366, area 366. And that's what I have for you. That was my Armless updates and my rules updates class. We reached we just went over the hour. I know we were a little bit late started. So I did kind of go a little bit quick through some of the stuff, but anything I can go into more detail on, or any questions that anyone has for me, I don't need to rush out. I'm happy to stick around and answer anything. Nope, everyone's happy. Everyone got the information they needed.
Like I said, the link, being able to send a link for a client full, that is just fabulous.
Yeah, and again, that's going to be here at the end of the month, but you can already do it through the app. But yeah, what's really cool about that is because I know there's so many agents who like to send, that they have a template in their email, and they can do that. They can click on that, insert that hyperlink, so that you can send a nice thing, not this big long string of HTML coding. You can insert that hyperlink and say, click here to view these properties. Yeah, it's a really, really nice feature.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming and taking care of us. And it was great information, I think. I learned a couple things even. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great afternoon. Here in Portland, anyway, the sun finally came out after a really, really cold morning. So I'm going to go stare at the sunshine for a little bit.
I hope you feel better too, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.